Welcome back to the Gridiron Grind with Andrew and Lance. Today we have a lot to talk about because there's news. We want to talk about our favorite teams today, Vikings and Eagles, and there's big time news on both sides. There's drama, especially for the Vikings. There's sadness for the Eagles. We have a lot to get to. Where do you want to start, Lance? I'm not even gonna start with a dad joke of any kind because we have a lot to talk about here.
I think let's go Kwesi. I think that's the most
Okay.
appropriate. Yeah.
Okay. So it just seems like whenever we record an episode, that day something happens. Like for example, we were talking about the Frank Smith thing last week, and then that day, all that stuff happens with Kwesi, and then Minnesota ends up hiring Frank Smith, which I think is awesome. And I'll get to that if I can, but that's not even probably the 10th biggest news that happened with the Vikings over the past week. But the biggest obviously was Kwesi. He got fired, which I think just in a vacuum, just the stats of Kwesi Adofo-Mensah being fired as GM, 100% fair. I completely agree with it. What's weird is the timing. It's just so strange. They wait till like almost a month after the end of the regular season
Yeah.
to fire him. And a lot of people are pointing to, oh, it's because Sam Darnold's having so much success. I don't think so. I'm sure that has a part factor, but I don't think the playoff success really matters. I think it was the regular season success and the team going to the playoffs and the Vikings not. That was a factor, I'm sure, but I don't think his postseason success was a huge factor, if any, in the reason why he was fired. I think it was just a coincidence with the timing on that, but the timing was very strange. There's been so many reports coming out of the woodworks now about drama in the building, about how he was not very good with people, and him with an analytic background, his analytics were off all the time, and I can believe some of that, and I'll get into some of that. But and there's also some reports that he took 2 weeks off for the birth of his son, which is not acceptable. I'm like, come on, let's not get into his personal life here. Let's leave that alone. Um, but it was just so strange. Like end of the season, they had their press conferences, which you kind of looked. It was odd because usually Kwesi and KOC had them together. This year they were separate, and they said things slightly different if you paid super close attention. It was like interesting. It was interesting. And then I think what it was Kwesi was always in the building, and the team and the owners and the coaching staff, all of them couldn't really have that conversation until the Senior Bowl. They sent Kwesi to the Senior Bowl, and Kwesi was by himself. He had no other coaching staff, no other assistants, nothing. He was by himself, to my knowledge. And that is when he was out there in Alabama, that is when they decided to have these meetings to talk about these things, and they got him out with those conversations. So I think it was, I don't want to say it was like a mutiny, but it was along those lines that this has been building up for years, and coaching staff, team, front office, they all were like, we don't like this guy. He's got to go. He's making some bad decisions, and his analytics don't really work with what it's supposed to. I mean, if you think of analytics, you think of getting the most value for your buck, most bang for your buck, as it were. He's not much of a football guy. He doesn't know the game as well. I mean, it was funny because there's some, like sometimes they show clips of war rooms and drafts, and there were some clips of Kwesi asking simple questions to the coaches because he didn't really know the answer. And I was like, oh, that's not good that your GM has to have all this. Um, but I think that that's the reason that it happened at the time that it happened was because Kwesi was around and they couldn't really talk about him much. They wanted to have the conversation when he was gone. And so they sent him into the Senior Bowl. He was out there talking to players, scouting players, talking to scouts, talking to reporters, all that stuff. And then they make that decision, which has an interesting ripple effect throughout what this offseason is going to be the Vikings. This offseason is either going to be really good or awful. And I don't think there's going to be any in between because now what we're going to do is um, have our finance guy Brzezinski. He's the one that does the contracts. Who manages the money, who pushes money. He's the one that gets us salary cap compliant every year. He's great at it. He's been with the Vikings for like 25, 30 years. He's been there for a long time doing the same job. Now he's going to be the interim GM, which looking at history, he was offered that job before. I think before we got Rick Spielman, he was offered the job. He didn't want it then. I don't think he wants it now, but I don't really know if he has a choice. He's not going to be the GM. He has the title of GM for the offseason and for the draft. He's not making the calls. It's going to be KOC and it's going to be Brian Flores. They're going to be making the calls, telling Krasinski, hey, we need this guy. Go get him. You just make the contract happen, which is interesting because that's kind of what reports were that happened before anyway with Kwesi, because Kwesi didn't know anything. So he got information from inside the organization on what decisions he has to make. And it's going to be very similar. The difference, though, is I think that Brzezinski is not going to make these really bad value trades. The one that's obvious is the very first draft of Kwesi. He trades down 20 spots from 12 to 32 with your division rival Lions. And what do you get? You get a couple second round picks back. That's it. You're dropping 20 spots and you don't get a future one. What are we doing here? First of all, don't trade out of that pick 12 because there's really good players there. Like Kyle Hamilton was sitting there. I think Jalen Carter was sitting there. We could have drafted Jalen Carter right there.
Jalen Carter wasn't in that draft.
No,
That'd
no,
be
no, not Carter.
Jordan
Excuse me, Jared
Davis,
Davis. Yeah, it was Davis. Yeah, excuse me, it
which
was
we
Davis.
we did take Davis, and so it just was great.
Yeah,
Glad that
yeah,
worked out.
that's what I'm saying. There was it was Davis, not Carter. Yeah, I got that wrong. But there were superstar players there, and you traded down 20 picks. Okay, bad decision, but get a haul back, especially with your rival. But you didn't. You didn't get a first round pick back. What are we doing? And you can talk about his draft picks. He drafted back to back players. I mean, that 2022 draft, he didn't draft anybody worth keeping. And he had like three second round picks and a first. And it was nothing. Bust, 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 bust. Um, but the players picked were from the team telling him to pick these guys. He made the trade and didn't get any value in it. And then there's numerous trades over and over. I think this commentator I listened to, his name is Thor Nystrom. He put together all trades that Kwesi did. He did like 33 trades, and Thor's awesome because he has his own like value chart as far as trades go, and he takes away from like the takes away from all the big names like the Jimmy Johnson value chart, all these big name charts. He takes away and kind of forms them together and makes his own. He said that of the 33 total trades that Kwesi made, not players, he didn't include players at all, just the value of the pick for each draft, that Kwesi lost on average about a 17 or an 18 selection first round pick is what he lost in all those trades. He lost a first round pick in value for this team over 4 years. That's huge. That's bad. That is the main reason why Kwesi is out. Not because of the having his baby and being away for 2 weeks. Let's not even talk about that anymore. People, come on. And it's not that he was weird in the room and he wasn't a good people person. He's an analytics guy. They're usually not really good communicators. It's because his analytics side, he was bad in. Those trades, an analytics guy, you don't lose those trades if you're an analytics guy. And he lost every single one. I mean, the trade up to get a first round pick in the draft when we picked McCarthy, he lost a lot of value in that. When we trade up again to get Dallas Turner from, I think, 23 to 17, we lost value in that. When we trade up from 11 to 10, we lost value in that. It's not big losses. It's like, according to the points, like 20 points there, 30 points there.
But it adds
But
up.
every single one was a loss. I don't even know if there was one trade that he quote unquote won according to the charts. Now you can't always compare to the charts because they're
I
they're
think that
not
that's
all black and white,
I
but
think that's
it's
tough though,
it's big.
because I think about the Patrick Mahomes trade. When the Chiefs traded up to get Patrick Mahomes, people were like,
Hmm.
"What are they doing?" I think we have a revisionist history in how we interpret things now, but the thought back then was, "This is a bad trade." Like a lot of people were
Hmm.
questioning, especially Patrick Mahomes. He's raw, he's not as polished as the other passers. Like, what are you doing? So I think that's a little tough because, like, you look at Dallas Turner. I think it's at least a little bit better. Jordan Davis, the Eagles traded up for, and they gave up a lot. They gave up like 4 draft picks to get him. They gave up like two-fourths, a fifth, and a sixth to move up
Hmm.
from where they were to get him. And for a while, the thought was, ugh, this was a bad
Hmm.
trade. We didn't get good value. So I struggle with that a little bit, but I don't want to stop you from keep going. I do have more thoughts, but I want to make sure you get to work this
No,
all
you're
out.
good. You're good. You're good. But the reason why I point to the value of the trades is because yes, Kwesi was signing off on the players, but he wasn't saying we need to draft this guy. He was getting that information from the room. And he was a big on the collaboration, which was also bad because he's hearing 6, 7 different voices and he has to make a
You
call. And of
cannot say
course,
that. You cannot say that, Andrew.
what do
You
you
take
mean?
that back. You give me different numbers right now.
Oh, okay, 5 to 8. How about
Thank
that?
you. Whew. All right.
I mean, 5 to 8. But anyway, he didn't know what decision to make. So he was hearing from the wide receivers coach, hey, you need this wide receiver. He was hearing from the coach, hey, you need this quarterback. He was hearing from the DB coach, we need this DB. He doesn't know. And so what does the decision make? He's like, I don't know. I guess what makes the most sense and whose voice is the loudest. It's not good to have as your GM. You need a GM who can make the call, hear all the data, and then make the best call. And he just wasn't it. So I do agree with the firing. I think I mentioned that one of our last shows. Like I was kind of surprised that he wasn't fired, but okay, let's see what he's got this year. But the thing that is scary and exciting at the same time is how this offseason is going to go. With 100%, it's the KOC run offseason. He's going to make the calls. Brian Flores is going to have a lot to say, but KOC is running this offseason. Let's not beat around the bush and play around. This is Kevin O'Connell. He was the reason why Kwesi got fired. He was the loudest voice. I can almost guarantee it. And now he has the biggest voice as far as roster construction in this offseason. Could that be good? Could be. Maybe he knows what he's doing. We'll see. Or it could be awful because your coach making decisions as far as personnel is concerned, your coach needs to be relational with the players and not like just data. It's going to be really, really interesting. I think that's really all I have on the Kwesi thing. We're supposedly going to be looking at a new GM after the draft, which by that time, that GM, that's not his team. So what's he going to do this season?
That is
He's
so
really going to
weird.
do nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is it going to be a KOC guy where there's a GM, but KOC still runs the show? I don't know. It's going to be really interesting.
So interesting. I think there's another side I look at this on this
Okay.
issue, and I think this does tie into comments made by a wide receiver that
Okay.
I feel like you're downplaying a little bit, but I think it's important to cover and it ties into this conversation. Justin Jefferson this week made comments about Sam Darnold,
Hmm.
and we view the outcome differently, but basically, in some degree, lamented not having Sam Darnold on the team. Like there's a little bit of lamenting in not having him and the success he's having in Seattle, which I think was a little weird on two fronts because one, I don't think that Sam Darnold is the driver of the success in Seattle. I think he is
Hmm.
along for the ride. Like he's definitely
Hmm.
doing his part, but he is not driving the bus to get them to the Super
Hmm.
Bowl. So I think that's a little weird. The other part that's I think here's where I'm at with this. I feel like this comment is no different than the early grumblings of AJ Brown about the Eagles offense.
I vehemently disagree, but I'll let you go first.
That's fine. But I just think it's the start of concern. Number one, it's not great for a player on your team that's one of your star players to in any way paint your current quarterback in a light of we'd be better if we swapped the two out. Even if it's objectively true, I think it allows for doubt to enter into the room in ways that are similar to what happened with AJ Brown. And I do worry about the relationship between Justin Jefferson and McCarthy because of that. Maybe it's not going to be a problem. I just think it allows for the potential for that to happen. Like, even if it's true, there's just sometimes things you don't say because of the fact that the way the media will run with it and the way that they'll try to paint the story. Now, we'll see. It's a long off season. It could end up being nothing. It could just be swept under the rug. It's totally feasible for that to happen. But I think it adds unnecessary stress that wasn't there before if I'm the Vikings and if I'm JJ McCarthy. And because now, especially if Sam Darnold wins the Super Bowl, I think that that narrative gets heightened even more. Like we've talked about it, we've worked through it, and we both agree the Vikings don't get to the Super Bowl if Sam Darnold's not in Minnesota. By just saying those comments, I think support the narrative that see, it would have been different. It would have been better. We could have been a Super Bowl team if we had kept Sam Darnold. JJ McCarthy is the issue with the team. So, it's like I said, it's an early seed. So we'll see if it actually sprouts and turns into anything, but I think it allows for doubt. Now, tying it back to the Kwesi issue, I feel like that objectively the Vikings could have had a better season. That there were moments where they slipped here and there, and if I'm the owner, I would feel like my team underperformed. And
Hmm.
this is the
Hmm.
second year in a row, I think, that you would argue, right, objectively, that the Vikings underperformed. They played better the year before, but an early playoff exit and a bitter Lions loss at the end of the year, I think,
Hmm.
make it, they sour what the success that you had. And so I think that naturally, as you start thinking about it, coaches and GMs start getting into a blame game fest
Hmm.
where it's not as unified, it's not as together. And I'm not saying Kwesi shouldn't have been fired. I just think um, that dynamic gets a little more dicey. And so I think I low key put Kevin O'Connell on the hot seat. I think that this is like I think the Kwesi firing even signals that, and there's a willingness to give Kevin O'Connell a shot to take the reins and to see what happens. But I'm very interested to see. It's Ziggy White or Ziggy Wolf. Is that your owner's name?
Hmm.
So we'll see what happens. But I don't know. I sense potential trouble brewing, and we'll see if the clouds can disperse and things don't end up blowing up. But just little chinks of like I don't know. I'm not loving some of the things that are happening in Minnesota. So I hope not. I hope for your team that that's just something where they round the corner and it really is a situation where Kwesi was just letting the team down. But we'll see. I'll let you respond though.
So the first thing is the quarterback position was all Kevin O'Connell's decisions, not Kwesi. Kevin
Sure.
O'Connell decided we need JJ McCarthy, and Kevin O'Connell is very close to McCarthy and Justin Jefferson. So they've had these conversations before Super Bowl week. Hey, what are they going to ask you? These are going to be some of our answers. So Justin Jefferson's responses were not a surprise to either anyone in the room. Everyone kind of was on the same. Everyone has these PR meetings all the time. Like, okay, you're going to be asked these questions. How are we going to answer? I think the difference with the AJ Brown was those were kind of off the cuff in the moment conversations. These that Justin Jefferson said were like there was plenty of time to prepare for them. That's where I would lean differently on that. And history is huge too. Justin Jefferson has never been anywhere near what you would count as a wide receiver diva. I'm not saying AJ Brown is, but he's definitely
Mhm.
closer than Jefferson is.
Sure.
Jefferson's always been quiet, low key to himself. And in those comments that everyone is taking out of context, he highlights that JJ McCarthy is their guy and he loves JJ McCarthy. But they would have been better with Sam Darnold this year because Sam Darnold knows the playbook. He played in the system. He was healthy and he played really well last year. That's what he was pointing to, which is 100% factual. If Sam Darnold was here, we would have won more games. We would have had a more successful offensive season. That's all he was saying in those comments. And then later, he also interviewed with Kay Adams, and I think this was like just a day or so ago. And this comment I thought was slightly on the more interesting side. The other one that he interviewed that we'd be better with Sam Darnold, I'm happy for Donald, all that. that means nothing to me because it's just a factual statement that we would have been better. He's happy for Sam Darnold, but he still mentioned that JJ is his guy. The comments he made with Kay Adams, and I'll say this about Justin Jefferson. He is awesome, but he isn't sometimes the best communicator. Like I've listened to his interviews, and sometimes he's just kind of not really saying what you know he's trying to say, if that makes sense. And he put a line out there with the Kay Adams interview and I thought you needed to put some of those words in a different area because, of course, Kay Adams was asking about the quarterback position, and Justin Jefferson basically said, "Right now, McCarthy is our guy. Not McCarthy is our guy right now." That sentence, those two different ways you put right now, totally different. Right now, comma, McCarthy is our guy. No, McCarthy's our guy right now. Totally different meaning, both those sentences. He said, right now, comma, McCarthy is our guy, which that is interesting. Either A, that's him just not putting that sentence really well, or B, there is some thoughts in that room of what do we do with the quarterback position. Now, there's a lot of steam out there that Minnesota is going to be looking at helping the quarterback this season. Sure. Making sure our quarterback room is better. Absolutely. But there's a lot of people saying we need to trade for Mac Jones. We need to go pick up Kyler Murray. No, those are dumb, short-sighted decisions. That's going to get you 10 wins and not go any further. We're not doing that. At least I hope to the Lord that we're not doing that. Because yes, our team would be quote unquote better next year, win maybe a few more games, but what's the goal of any season? To win a Super Bowl. We're not winning a Super Bowl with Mac Jones or Kyler Murray or Tua or any of these guys that are available. There's also been steam of a Joe Burrow thought process and trade, and Joe Burrow's been making some really odd statements as well. Like I think at the Pro Bowl, they asked, do you have fun with the Bengals? And he said, sometimes. I'm like, come on, you can't be making these statements. The media's gonna love it too much. But there's steam of Minnesota looking for him. I mean, if that happens, awesome. Would I take Joe Burrow over McCarthy? Of course I would. But I don't think the Bengals are going to trade Joe Burrow, especially because they brought their coaching staff back. That doesn't make sense to me. So, all that to be said, that the comments by Justin Jefferson, especially the better and happy for Sam Darnold, that doesn't really mean anything to me because Justin Jefferson has always been team first. He's even made statements before of his stats, and he says he doesn't really care. He just wants to win. He is a team guy. He was, I think, in that same Kay Adams interview, he was asked about 1,000 yards. He said, "I have no idea how I got 1,000 yards." He said that was crazy that I got that high. He wasn't paying attention. He was just playing football, trying to win games. And then he was shocked that he got that high because he mentioned they had rookie quarterback play, which is true. He's not throwing McCarthy under the bus. He's just saying that rookies take some time to develop. And he had a rookie quarterback this year. That's why he didn't have his season was barely 1,000 yards. And in that same comment, he mentioned that JJ McCarthy is his guy. So it's just a lot of news outlets and Twitter people, they like to take stuff out of context a lot. But to your point of that there's some rumblings within the building, I think the rumblings with the building is the decision on the quarterback room, not strife between receiver, quarterback, and coach. There's just decisions that have to be made. And I think they're either looking at big game hunting or picking up someone to be a better backup for McCarthy. Because last year we had Carson Wentz who played okay, but then he almost died. And then we had Max Brosmer who was just horrendous. And Max Brosmer was a Kwesi guy. Kwesi hyped that train up and it didn't look all that great. So that is what the big decisions in the room is going to be is who is going to be in that quarterback room with McCarthy. Is it we trade McCarthy for Joe Burrow and a few first round picks? That's a decision they have to make. If Joe Burrow is literally available, you're making that call, but I just don't think he is. But I don't think those comments that Jefferson made were a shot at anybody. It was just he isn't always the best communicator in some of his interviews. He is such a team guy. He loves McCarthy. They hang out all the time. He's not throwing shade or throwing him under the bus. He's just stating that, hey, I love Sam Darnold. If Sam Darnold was on this team, we would have been better. And that's just truth.
I don't know. I mean, I get what you're saying. I just still feel like that's still just, it's not a great comment. I just feel like no matter how you spin it, you don't say that. You don't say that if, like, it's the same thing with the Eagles offense. Like, even if it's true, throwing the offense under the bus, anyone on the offense under the bus doesn't make it better. Like, I hear you. I just still feel like, I feel like if I'm Justin Jefferson or I'm like the PR for the team afterwards, they'd be like, buddy, we got to tighten things up here because you're adding in element of doubt. And then you double down with the right now thing with Kay Adams, and it's like, all right, maybe you just need to hold off from interviews for a little bit because the last thing we need is people to think that we're entering this offseason and we're not happy that we have JJ McCarthy as our quarterback or we have doubts that JJ like I and I think that, people look at the AJ Brown situation from just the past couple of years, but when he first got to Philadelphia, he was genuinely happy. He was getting the football. Jalen Hurts and him were on the same page. Relationships are fluid. Sure, they were good in a moment's time in the past, but relationships change all the time at work. I see it all the time. I get along with some coworkers, and then we go through stretches where we don't get along with each other.
Hmm.
It happens. I just think I think that if Kevin O'Connell is like who we've talked about, right, is taking more control of the team, if he views this as a non-issue, I'm not sure it's a non-issue. I don't think it's a wording issue. I think there might be something more here, and I would hate to see it turning into a dumpster fire, is all I'm saying.
And I do hear you, but another little piece to it is I am not fully convinced that KOC is a huge, huge fan of McCarthy. I think that I don't want to say that they settled for him, but I think McCarthy was his last pick in that draft. I think this is easy to know. He super wanted Drake May. He told Kwesi go get that 3 pick. Now, Patriots weren't trading out of that 3 pick. That's also well known. But there's been some rumblings that KOC isn't a huge fan of McCarthy in a way. And in the post the end of season press conferences, KOC said that they need to get back to his play style, which basically his play style is airing the ball out, which we can argue is that a good thing or not. I can hear the opposite side that we need to run the ball more. But KOC basically mentioned that he wants to get back to what he does best as a coach and a play caller. And when he was doing that, McCarthy wasn't having any success. He was struggling. When they simpled it down, ran the ball, McCarthy played super well. Now, can McCarthy develop into that? Absolutely. He can develop into that passer that KOC wants. But this is where the scheme of going to get like a Joe Burrow makes a little bit more sense because Joe Burrow wouldn't have a problem with that kind of offense. He would fling that ball around. I just don't think he's available. So again, I think that Justin Jefferson making those comments is kind of in lockstep with what's they're already seeing in the building. Like, hey, our quarterback play wasn't great. And McCarthy would have openly admitted that too. Quarterback play wasn't great. If you asked McCarthy, would we make the playoffs with Sam Darnold? He probably would have said yes because he knows how he played last year. He's probably the hardest on himself than anyone in this league, which actually, if anyone thinks that these comments are a shade at him, that might be a good thing because he's going to take that as motivation and he's going to use that. That's the kind of mindset McCarthy has. He takes anything as motivation to go win. And that just the dog in the street as what he said. That's the dog in him. But this KOC thing happened at the very beginning of the year when McCarthy took one practice off to see the birth of his son, and, and KOC brought that up like 12 more times in press conferences. That yeah, McCarthy missing the Thursday third down sessions was really difficult. He wasn't prepared for that Falcons game. He mentioned that like in week 16 when that Falcons game was week 2. And he mentioned in the post-game press conferences, I mean, the postseason press conferences as well. There's been a little bit of strife between KOC and McCarthy for multiple different things. I think that can be mended, absolutely. But the Jefferson comments are kind of in lockstep with what KOC has been sort of saying anyway. So I don't think those Jefferson comments really mean anything. And also, McCarthy is a big boy. He takes things very well and he uses everything for motivation. So this could be like a 40 chess move by KOC and Jefferson saying, hey, we got to motivate McCarthy somehow. let's say some things that are going to be taken out of context.
I think that's a little bit. I don't know. I feel like that's trying to make a lot of logic out of something that might not be that logical, but we'll see. We'll see. I think right now, man, we've talked about it, but accountability is my biggest concern for KOC.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
And if this is really the case, where some of this stems from the fact that KOC is unhappy with McCarthy, I would pull out a giant mirror for KOC and ask him who
Oh,
he
for
sees
sure.
him.
Because
Because,
he's supposed to be the development guy. He's supposed to be the quarterback
well,
whisperer.
I mean, but like think about it from a Jalen Hurts standpoint. When Jalen Hurts came in the NFL, I will never forget this. The Eagles played the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. It was week two. And Nick Sirianni totally leaned into this beat the Cowboys thing. It was being very over the top about everything. It came out with a game plan where they were just airing the ball, and Jalen Hurts just could not do it. And you fast forward to later that year, Nick Sirianni gives it the play call, gives it to Shane Steichen. Steichen figures out a rhythm between passing and running. He looks more confident, or Hurts looks more confident. Next year, he becomes a finalist for MVP, takes the Eagles to the Super Bowl. Like, I think a good coach is not someone that forces someone into their system. They figure out a
Hmm.
way
Oh, for
to make
sure.
the
Yeah.
system work around the quarterback or
Hmm.
around the player. And I feel like that KOC's really struggled with that recently. And, some of it can be argued, yeah, you have to level up. You can't just be the guy handing off the ball at Michigan anymore. You're going to have to do more.
Hmm.
But I also think that there is a part of it that's, you know, like was Patrick Mahomes this goat of a player, or was Andy Reid a great developer?
Hmm.
Or was it both? I would argue it's probably a bit of both. And right now, I think KOC could do a better job of putting McCarthy in position to be a successful quarterback.
100%. And that's what he did the last 5 games of the year when they went on their win streak. And that took everything out of KOC, and he was not happy about it.
But it's like, but that's where the growth is, man.
Hmm.
Andy Reid became a better coach when the Eagles fired him. Sometimes you have to go through that. Sometimes you have
Hmm.
to be willing to admit to
For sure.
yourself, where am I failing? So anyway, I know it's a lot of thoughts. I just think that the antennas are up, Andrew. That's what I'm saying. The antennas are
Oh,
up,
yeah. KOC
and
is on a quote unquote hot seat because now this is fully his team. Because, the blame game, Kwesi's out of there now. I don't think that KOC is going to be fired after the end of this year unless they win like 3 wins. If it's like a horrible season, yes, he's gone. But if they miss the playoffs again next year, I don't think he's gone at the end of next year. I think it's the following season. I think he has a 2-year window to show that he can run this team the way he wants. But on a hot seat,
mm,
yes. I just don't think it's on fire until they see what he does.
I don't think
Because
it.
if this season's horrible, 4 or 5 wins, he's gone. If it's another 8, 9 win team and we just miss the playoffs, the owners are going to give him one more year. All right, make the playoffs next year or you're gone. That's going to kind of be the decision, in my opinion.
I see what you're saying. I just think that the NFL things change all the time. Did the
Sure.
Ravens have any plan to fire John Harbaugh this year? I would argue no. I don't think that was the
Hmm.
plan going into the season. I just think things went that badly for John Harbaugh.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
um, so I think that there's a little bit of fluidity to the situation. It just
For
depends on
sure. Oh,
the
yeah,
season, how things develop. If you have a 4-game losing streak going into the playoffs, and don't make it, I think it's easier to sell we just got to
that's a
move on.
possibility. Yeah, that's a possibility. Um, and also the other thing is with the hire of Frank Smith being the assistant coach. So he's the assistant coach, and I think he's going to be the run game coordinator, which is very interesting because he comes from the Dolphins. Dolphins ran the ball really well. I'm wondering, maybe more hoping, if this is going to be someone in KOC's ear saying, let's work out how we can run the ball better. Maybe not necessarily more, which we do need more, but how can we run the ball better in better situations, better situational running. I think that could be what Frank Smith could bring to KOC that KOC needs. And maybe this is KOC reaching out saying, I need another voice in this room that can help me out when I need it because it was obvious. 3rd and 1, he's pass heavy. That's not the way to go, especially with a rookie quarterback. Maybe this is kind of like you were mentioning with the Jalen Hurts scenario where they saw, hey, let's run the ball more. Maybe that's what's going to happen. We'll see. I don't trust that until I see it with KOC, but I loved the Frank Smith hire. I think that was phenomenal, very smart. That was the reason why we got him instead of you guys, because we gave him assistant coach instead of just O-line coach or just like offensive coordinator. We gave him assistant coach. That was the big difference. Like he's basically number two in that room. Well, he's number three. Flores is number two. We all know that. But he's number three voice in that room.
Offensive side.
Yeah, he's number two offensive side. Yes, he's higher than our offensive coordinator, who probably no one even knows the name of, Wes Phillips. He's higher than him. But we'll see how it goes. I love the hire. Hopefully that's a good voice in that room, and hopefully we can run the ball a little bit better. And hopefully our O line gets better. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm right there with you. KOC needs to look in the mirror. He needs to make some adjustments. Um, Going into the season, I don't think he's on the hot seat, but it's definitely getting warm in there because now it's all him. All the blame points to him this year. If they struggle, it's his fault. If they win, it's because of him. So all eyes are on KOC.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Anything else from the Vikings perspective you wanted to cover,
I
Andrew?
don't think so. We have to jump into the Eagles. That way you can get those thoughts off your chest. I spent a lot of time talking about Kwesi and KOC, so let's go to your side.
Yeah, been a big stretch for the Eagles. We talked a little bit about Sean Mannion before, but I've taken some
Mm,
time to think about it, and honestly, I'm really happy with the move. Um, I don't feel like it's a discount. I don't feel like it's a bad move. Were there other names available? Like when I think about it side by side, would I take Brian Dable over Sean Mannion? I would say no. Would I take Mike
mm,
McDaniel over him? I would say no. Um, would I take Todd Monken? Yes, that's one I would have taken over um, Mannion. There's a couple other names that are floating out there. Charlie Weiss from the from the college football
mm,
level from Ole Miss. I think that would have been a really interesting move. Super risky, but would have been interesting.
hmm
But I like what I'm hearing. I did see that the Eagles hired a new run game coordinator, and that his name is Ryan, oh man, Mahaffey. I think that's his name. But he's from the Packers. So he's a former fullback, but he'll be the new run game coordinator and tight ends coach. But I think that's a solid hire. And when you put it together with Josh Grizzard from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think there's signs of hope. Like I think they're taking things seriously. They're getting better. The one part I will say is it sucks that we lost Jeff Statland. That was a gut punch. Um, did not
Yeah.
think that was going to happen. There's some interesting articles done by Tim McManus from ESPN outlining why he thinks it ultimately fell apart and why
hmm
it didn't work. A little bit of talk about, maybe Nick Sirianni disrespected him or was not giving him the ability to think through things and lead the team, maybe stepping and interfering. Um, and I feel bad because I did not want to see Jeff Stoutland to go. I thought he did a
Yeah.
lot of great things.
One of the best in the business.
The part that's really hard in my mind to justify is I've thought about it, and it kind of ties into our thoughts from last episode. Where a position group is ranked is not nearly as important as where it's trending. And the Eagles' offensive line trended significantly down from last year. Like as we talked about, if they really were around the 15 mark, which I think sounds accurate, that's where I would have put them is somewhere right in the middle. And the year before, you were in the 3-2 range, arguably one. And to make that far of a drop, that is really bad. Um,
Well, a
and
lot of injuries had to do with that. You even mentioned yourself that Dickerson should not have played this year.
Well, but I think that that's to it. Like, Jeff Stoutland is close to Dickerson, and I said this, and I'm going to state it again on the record because it matters. But I said that Dickerson should have sat out the season, that he
hmm
was making a bad decision, and that he might be just a shell of himself. So rather than pushing
hmm
himself past a point that doesn't make sense, sit out the year, get fully recovered, get better. Like that's the way it should be. Lane Johnson, I wish he would have been back. But here's the thing. If he's going to be more healed and more recovered because he didn't play with the Lisfranc injury, That is the better path. Like,
Hmm.
it's easy to justify the short-term gains. It's more important, though, to justify and look at the long-term gains, especially after you won a Super Bowl. That's when you have the most chips to make a move like that. So I don't know what the dynamics were. I don't know what happened. I don't know if sometimes it's hard as a coach when you get really close to your players and you become really good friends with them. It can prevent you from seeing things clearly. It can prevent you from making the most accurate decisions. I'm not saying that it's bad, but I am saying it's possible. The element's there. The one part that I'll mention is there's a post here by Anthony DeBona. He's a journalist for the Eagles, and he posted this, and I thought this exactly, but here's what he says. Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni reportedly got more involved with the offense before week 14. Now we have learned that it's around the same time that Jeff Stoutland was stripped of his duties as run game coordinator. While most Eagles fans look at the report of Jeff Stoutland being let go and the ultimate changes happening being negative, Philadelphia's rushing offense was actually drastically better after that change. Here's the stats. Week 1 to week 13, 327 carries. That's a lot of carries for 1,300 yards, a 3.9 average. Week 14 to the wild card round, 187 carries for 826 yards. That's a 4.4 yards per carry.
I want to say one thing to that. Go ahead and finish, but I want to say one thing to that.
Yeah. And Saquon Barkley surpassed 100 plus rushing yards in just one game of the first 12 for the Eagles, and then three in the final six.
The one thing I wanted to say to that is I looked that up too. I looked up the like game by game, and the opponents had a factor as well. I think
I,
you guys played the Commanders twice. You played
mhm.
um, some easier run defenses, and when you played the good run defense like the Bills, it was still like 3.2 average. Now, the one I will say against the Chargers, that was a big game. It was like 122 rush yards by Barkley. That was awesome. But outside that game, the opponent also, I would say, it was a big factor on why the rushing success was. So I don't want to discredit Sirianni. He did a great job, but I don't think he gets like he had an amazing game plan and it was all because of him that the run game changed. Well, also the opponent as well. And in the wild card round, you're playing a 49ers team that their defense was just gashed with so many injuries. So I just wanted to point that out a little bit. I want to give Stoutland credit and as opposed to discredit him because the run game seemed successful when he was stripped. That's also because of opponent. I think Stoutland got kind of discredited too much this year. Stoutland was awesome. To me, he's like second or third best O line coach in the whole league. And I don't want him to get a lot of flack for how it went when he was stripped of the run game. The opponent mattered as well.
I hear what you're saying, but there's something else I think that it goes unnoticed that is important. Tank Bigsby got considerably more carries in that
That's
second half
fair.
stretch.
Yeah.
And that was it, a lot of Eagles fans are wondering, where's Tank Bigsby? Why is he not being
Hmm.
used? But I mean, against the Raiders, he had 17 attempts, 57 yards. Against the Commanders, the second or the first one, he had 4 carries, 37 yards. The Commanders' second time, 60 carries for 75 yards. And part of that's, influenced by playing or not playing, right, of Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
But
Starters. Yeah. Hmm.
I think the overall point still remains. And also that Bills game, the weather was not great. There were
Sure. Yeah.
multiple comments as far as that it was just a tough game for both teams to get going.
Well, Saquon
Um,
played really well in the weather against the Rams last year in the playoffs.
right. I'm just saying that you can have a good weather game and then a bad weather game. Because we've talked about that with the dome
Hmm.
stuff, right? About like why you
Hmm.
prefer dome because it takes away the factor of it potentially being possible to have
Absolutely.
a bad game. I understand it's a small sample size. I just think I don't know. I think there's something to that. And I understand as far as the opponents. It's a fair argument, but like Andrew, our offense looks so bad that I really wondered if we were going to even be good against the Raiders and Commanders. Like legitimately. I thought that it could be really, really bad. Um,
Hmm.
and the Chargers game, we definitely looked different on offense. We looked better. We
Hmm.
looked more competent. We'll see. And you know what? I didn't want Just out in the league. Like I want to make that clear. I
Yeah.
didn't want him to
Yeah.
leave. It is tough though because a week 1 to week 13 is a large sample size to have bad success. I mean, it is, and it there's no way you couldn't convince me that the Eagles underutilized the talent they had, that they
Hmm.
mismanaged it, that it didn't go the way that it should have, and that's on the coaches. And um, it is tough though, because like I have questions about the offensive line. Did they put in the work? Were they disciplined? Did they do everything they could to take care of their injuries? I don't know. And I'm not trying to make the offensive line out to be bad guys because sometimes things just don't work out the way you want to. Injuries
Yeah.
get in the way. You know, you're just not feeling it right now. We all have inexplicable
And the
stretches.
loss of Mekhi Becton was probably a big thing too.
You know, it's interesting because you look at the PFF ratings and Tyler Steen and Becton are similar. So
This year?
compared this year to last year,
Okay.
they're more similar than they're not. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I looked
Hmm.
at this just a couple weeks ago, and we're talking about like, you know, 3 to 4 position difference, like not drastic, because that's what I thought it might be. Now, the run game,
Hmm.
I think, was where the benefit was there the most, and I
Oh
definitely
yeah.
believe that.
I don't think Becton was a great pass protector, but run blocker, whoo, he moved people.
Sure did. Um, But, you know, we'll see what happens. I saw that Becton's getting released by the Chargers, and I wish they would come back to the Eagles as a
That's
potential
interesting.
backup. So
But with Stoutland not
Stoutland
there,
now
does he
there.
come
I know.
back? That's interesting.
It's it's tough, man. Um, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of factors though. I just feel like that I'm thinking about. One is Stoutland's won 2 Super Bowls now, and he's kind of in the same boat as Vic Fangio, where retirement's calling. You know, it does.
Yeah. I think
It's
I heard he's going to take the year off, right? Stoutland is.
That's what I've heard. And, you know,
Okay.
we'll see how it goes. This is the way I look at it. The Eagles have got to figure out their problems. Like this was not good enough.
Hmm.
Fans don't
Right.
want another wild card appearance and out. And you have to start figuring out what the problem is. They wanted Stoutland to come back as the offensive line coach, but didn't feel like he could be the running game coordinator.
Yeah.
And, you know, that could be seen as a slight, disrespectful. I understand that. We've talked before about how sometimes people will get promoted to positions they don't deserve, or that that's just not working. And I don't know if it did or didn't. 2024 felt like it was a great season as far as rushing, but 2025 was, I mean, it was bad, man.
Hmm.
The part that's hard too that people forget about, the Eagles had the most expensive offense in the NFL. They spent the most money on their offense. This was not good enough from
For
everywhere,
sure.
from
Yeah.
offensive line to run game to pass game. It was all not good enough. And
And that's why Batula was fired.
yeah, man, it's tough, but I like what the Eagles are doing, and I think it's also hard because how much was Stoutland not happy with who became the offensive coordinator? You
I
know,
think that was the deciding factor. I think that was what, the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. I think their run game taken away from him really hurt his pride. Absolutely. But I think the OC hire probably was like, all right, I don't want to work with this guy. I'm out. I think that was the final straw, so to speak.
I think so, but you know, it's tough, man. As a coach and as the team, you've got to do what's best for the team, and
Yeah.
it sucks to lose position coaches, but we had to do something different. It wasn't working. It was not
Hmm.
working. Our offensive line should have played way better. And, you know, I understand that I probably sound like a spoiled brat when I say that. They know they didn't play good enough. They know they should have played far better, and they absolutely
Hmm.
had a role in the Eagles losing this year and not
Oh, for
playing
sure.
well.
Yeah. I would say, to my opinion, my just outside looking in, I think the OC was the number one reason. I think the O line was the number two reason.
Yeah, I mean it's weird, man. I don't get it. It's got to be better. I mean, but you know, I think that let's be fair too, right? Like I think our wide receiver coach should go.
Mm.
I think I was listening to a podcast about this, and the guy I was listening to brought up the fact that outside of AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, who else has developed? And to be
Hmm.
fair, I can't think of anybody. Jahan Dotson's had moments, but he hasn't developed.
Yeah.
Um, and he's not even a homegrown talent, so I don't know how much credit you deserve for that.
Hmm.
Because he didn't have a Mekhi Becton leap. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think that that's kind of where I'm at. I think Mannion's a good hire. I'm in the position of let's see what happens. I'm glad we didn't go with a retread. Like if we got Matt Nagy to be the offensive coordinator, I would be disappointed.
Mm.
I don't think I look at it
So
as
you're more interested in the unknown than the we know who this guy is, what we're going to get out of him kind of thing. Because
well,
Manion's never done OC before, so it's going to be interesting. I'm not as high in the hire as you are, but I'm not against it. I'm just thinking, okay, they see something in him from the interviews, obviously, and he
uh,
comes from the coaching trees, like the big ones, like McVay and all those guys. But he's never done the actual play calling and offensive
sure.
coordinator before, so it's a mystery. It's an unknown, as opposed to like you said, a Nagy. You know what you're getting with him. That could be good or bad. Me, I was on the side of I would prefer a McDaniel. I would prefer, like you said, a Munkin. I would prefer to me, I Dayball, it's 50-50 for me between him and Mannion because again, I don't know what I'm getting with Mannion. It could be great. It could be he doesn't really have it. You don't know. With Dayball, you know what you're getting. He did help develop Josh Allen. He had success there, but he
Mhm.
also had really bad tape for the Giants. So that's in the air. I can see the logic there, but I definitely would have preferred Mike McDaniel, and I definitely would have preferred Munkin. But
I
I'm not
think
against Mannion. It's
uh,
just I don't know. I just don't know what you're going to get.
I think the problem is with McDaniel for me is I don't know how Vic Fangio and McDaniel would have worked.
Yeah.
I think people underplay how big that would have been a role, but to work for someone that used to be your boss that fired you because
Mm.
they decided to blame
That is
everything on you,
interesting.
I don't know how you
Hmm.
get around that. Some people have said it wouldn't be a problem. I disagree. Bad blood
Yeah,
is bad blood, and I think there's bad blood between both of them. Um,
that's a fair point. Yeah.
because but you think about it, offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators need to work together, especially as you
Hmm.
prepare for teams, because some coaches are going to know more about a team versus another. So you need to have a relationship where it's like, listen, I've gone up against this team. Here's things that you really need to keep an eye on.
Hmm.
Um, like I think about like the Remember the Titans movie, the relationship between the head coach and the defensive coordinator. That's the
Hmm.
relationship you need between defensive and offensive coordinator. The respect, the acknowledgement. You know more in this moment than I do. Let's lean on your knowledge. And
Hmm.
I really question that about McDaniel. It's not the talent, but like there's that part. But the other part I can't get out of my head about McDaniel, man, that people seem to be forgiving so willingly. He is the reason the Tua is broken from a concussion standpoint.
Hmm.
I don't care what you want to say about trainers. You're the head coach. The final call is with you. He did not have to play in that Cincinnati Bengals game. You could
Hmm.
have told him that you can't play. I've seen coaches do it in the past. He could do it too, and he didn't. And I don't know if that was because of cowardice or because of arrogance and the idea that, you know what, we'll be fine. He's going to be fine. But either
He was just
way,
looking out for himself and his job because he knew that they had a quote unquote better chance of win with Tua than their backup. So he was just selfish for himself.
but I mean that's the thing though, is like I'm
Right.
concerned about that. That is a
Hmm.
trait I don't want on my team. Look at Justin Herbert. I don't need you to come in and break my quarterback.
Yeah, I have a mixed feelings on McDaniel with the Chargers and Herbert. I think X's and O's, it could be awesome
Yeah.
because he's got a great mind. They got a good talent on that team. They need another receiver outside of McConkey, but they could draft that, and that could be very interesting. And they're getting their tackles back next year from injury, so their O line's going to be pretty good again.
Hmm.
But also at the same time, like you're saying, some of the decisions he's made, it's like, but
Well,
he has Harbaugh over him. I
it's
think that's the
true.
biggest thing. I think
Uh,
Harbaugh's going to shut that nonsense down and just say, hey, run the offense, make these plays, and that's it. So I think overall it's going to be really good for the Chargers
mm.
because McDaniel's not going to have that say so or that decision making. It's going to be Harbaugh, and he's not going to stand for that. So that's going to be really interesting.
Well, I think that some other thing that or another thing that's really important too is like if this was Kellen Moore that was available and kind of in the same bucket as Dable and them, I would have taken Moore because I was
Yeah,
really excited when Moore was available.
he
And I
was
think,
awesome.
but
Hmm.
let me explain why I think that. Um, Kellen Moore is a former quarterback. He knows the grind of the day-to-day of being a quarterback and how much mental toll it takes and physical toll. And I feel like that he was really sensitive to that for Jalen Hurts. He really tried to craft the offense in a way that still allowed him to run, but protect him and put him in positions where he's not taking excessive hits. And I don't trust that with Brian Dable. I trust that Brian Dable is going to try to put you in a position to look the best so that he can go get a head coaching job.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see that with Dable. I think Matt Nagy, eh, was his offense successful in Chicago? No. Did the offense in Kansas City look good last year when Matt Nagy was there for the Kansas City Chiefs? No. Like, I don't know how successful he's really been. Like, Todd
Hmm.
Monken's different. I have seen what Todd Monken has done with Lamar Jackson and where he's taken him from to where he is now. Like, that is someone I think you can trust. But it's not just that. You can trust him to be wise with the talent he has. And I think that's like the number one factor for me. So with Sean
Hmm.
Mannion being a former quarterback, there's hope. I would not feel hopeful about Dable. I would be worried about him putting Jalen Hurts in position to get concussions. I'd say the same thing about McDaniel, and I also say the same thing about character issues. I mean, the locker room in Miami was just, it was the dumps, man. Maybe they were fired up to play for him, but it was still the dumps. Um, they could never take off. But I could be wrong. I'm not saying Mannion will for sure be the best coach out there. There's a lot of hope in this hire. And I like the thought process of how they got there.
Yeah, he better be good because if he's not, his house is going to get egged.
Dude, sometimes Eagles fans are just so unrelenting. You're not wrong.
Hmm. Yeah, I hear all your points on that. I just don't know what Mannion's going to bring. I know he's a former quarterback, but so was KOC, and KOC is one of the most stubborn people in the world. So it's hard to say what you're going to get. He could be great, but we'll see. I just don't know. I know he's been around a lot of good offensive organizations. He's been around KOC. He was with KOC the first year. He's been with LaFleur. He's been with McVay. He's been with a lot of really great offensive minds. So the history's there. It's very possible. He's just never done it before. We'll see what he's got.
Yeah, it's fair, man. Well, the way I look at it, the ship's going to sink either way. You know, like I love the quote by Greg Olson, man. It might be something I put up on the wall. You don't play in the NFL to lose by a little. You don't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not interested in an offensive coordinator that takes me from 16th best to 13th best offense. Like I
Mm-hmm.
want someone that's going to take us to number one. Like that's the only way we're going to win a Super Bowl championship again is if we have that type of coach.
Yep. And you can say the same thing for quarterbacks. You don't want a quarterback that's going to get you 10 wins. You want one that's either going to really struggle so you can just reset or can get you a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Amen.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad we got some stuff off of our chest, Andrew.
Yes.
We had a little
Yes, we
bit
got
of
out
we
there
had
in
a
the
little bit of
open.
disagreement, so this will be fun to monitor as we
Yeah, it's always good to have a little banter back and forth.
yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. So this was fun.
Yep. Yes, it was. But that's all we got. So thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and we will see you next time.
We'll see everybody.